What are you doing here, Coraline?
Dad, I need a place to stay for a little while. Just until I can find an apartment and get a job.
Absolutely not. We warned you this would happen. You were so determined to uncover the truth, and now look at you. You ruined your own future.
Mom, please. I'm your daughter. I just need your help for a few weeks. That's all I'm asking.
No. Mira is getting married next month, and her husband will be living here with us until they can afford their own place. There isn't any room for you.
Please. I don't have anywhere else to go.
You made your choice, Coraline. Now you have to live with the consequences.
"3 years ago, my parents refused to let me in after my divorce. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. They slammed the door in my face. Now they want to move in with me. I've treated them the way they deserve. Well, let's go. My name is Coraline and I'm 30 years old. 5 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out when I married my husband. We had this whole life planned out and I was so happy. But it turns out I was living a lie the entire time. The divorce finally went through last month, and it was absolutely brutal. It took almost 2 years to get through all the legal stuff, and I spent every penny I had on lawyers and court fees. We had this prenuptial agreement that basically screwed me over completely. Everything went to him, the house, the cars, his business, all of it. I walked away with exactly $6,200 from our joint checking account that we used for groceries and gas. That's it. The worst part is that I found out he'd been cheating on me for years. I don't even know how long it was going on, but I had proof of at least 3 different women. When I confronted him about it, he didn't even try to deny it. He just shrugged and said, "What did you expect, Coraline? You let yourself go. Like it was my fault somehow. I thought my family would support me through this mess. I was so wrong about that too." When I told my parents I was filing for divorce, my mom literally said, "You can't do this, Coraline. You need to work it out and stop being dramatic. This kind of thing happens in every marriage. You just deal with it and move on." My dad wasn't any better. "Coraline, you're throwing away your future over nothing. So what if he made some mistakes? He's a good provider." Even my younger sister Mira turned against me. "Are you insane?" she said when I told her. "He pays for everything, doesn't he? You live in that beautiful house and drive a nice car. Most women would kill for what you have." I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my own family. But I went ahead with the divorce anyway because I couldn't keep living like that. I couldn't pretend everything was fine when my husband was out there humiliating me with other women. After everything was finalized, I was completely broke and had nowhere to go. I packed up my clothes and personal stuff and drove to my parents' house. I figured they'd let me stay there until I could get back on my feet, even if they didn't agree with my decision. I knocked on the door and my dad answered. When he saw me standing there with my suitcases, he crossed his arms and blocked the doorway. "What are you doing here, Coraline?" he asked. "I need a place to stay for a little while until I can find an apartment and get a job," I said. "Absolutely not," my mom said from behind him. "We told you this would happen. You wanted to find the truth so badly, and look what you got. A ruined future." "Please," I said. "I'm your daughter. I just need some help for a few weeks." My mom pushed past him. "Myra's getting married next month, and her husband is going to live here with us until they can afford their own place. You made your choice, Coraline. Now you have to live with it." Then she actually slammed the door in my face. I stood there on their porch for like 10 minutes just staring at that closed door. I kept thinking they'd change their minds and open it, but they never did. So I loaded my stuff back in the car and drove to the cheapest motel I could find. That first night in that crappy motel room was probably the lowest point of my entire life. I had $6,200 to my name, no job, no home, and no family support. I was completely on my own for the first time ever. I'd gone straight from my parents' house to college to marriage, so I'd never actually had to take care of myself before. I spent the next few days driving around looking at apartments I couldn't afford and filling out job applications. Everything was so expensive, and most places wanted first month, last month, and a security deposit up front. Even the dumpy places wanted more money than I had. On my fourth day, I was walking down the street looking for a diner to get some cheap food when I saw a "For Rent" sign in the window of this little restaurant. The building was old, but it looked clean, and the restaurant smelled amazing when I walked past it. I went inside and asked about the apartment. This older woman came out from the kitchen wiping her hands on her apron. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and these kind eyes that reminded me of my grandmother. She told me the price, and it was still more than I could afford long-term, but I was desperate. "I can only pay for 3 months up front," I told her honestly. "I just got divorced, and I don't have a job yet." Instead of saying no right away, she looked at me for a long minute. "What kind of work did you do before?" "I went to college for financial management, but I never worked in that field. For the last 5 years, I was a personal assistant and secretary at my ex-husband's company." "Can you handle customers and manage schedules and inventory?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. I can do all of that." "Well," she said thoughtfully, "I've been looking for someone to help me run this place. The pay isn't much, but you'd get free meals, and I'd give you 30% off your rent. You interested?" I almost started crying right there. "Yes, absolutely. When can I start?" "Tomorrow morning if you want. I'm Ruth, by the way." "I'm Coraline, and thank you so much, Ruth. You have no idea how much this means to me." That night, I moved into the little apartment above Ruth's restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and safe, and it was mine. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe things might work out after all. I started working at Ruth's restaurant the next morning at 6 a.m. She showed me around the whole place and explained how everything worked. The restaurant was small but cozy, with about 15 tables and a counter that seated 8 people. Ruth had been running it for 23 years, and most of her customers were regulars who came in almost every day. "These people are like family to me," she said as she introduced me to some of the morning crowd. "Mr. Parker comes in every day at 7 for his coffee and scrambled eggs. Mrs. Lynn always orders the same turkey sandwich for lunch. They've been coming here for years." I learned the register system pretty quickly, and Ruth taught me how to take orders and manage the seating. The work wasn't hard, but it kept me busy, which was exactly what I needed. I didn't want time to think about my divorce or my family situation. After about 2 weeks, I started noticing some things about the business. Ruth was always stressed about money, and I could see why. The place was barely breaking even. She had loyal customers, but there just weren't enough of them to make real money. One afternoon when it was quiet, I was looking through the receipts and doing some quick math in my head. Ruth came over and saw me with all the papers spread out. "What are you doing, Coraline?" "Just trying to understand the finances a little better," I said. "Ruth, can I ask you something? Are you making any profit at all here?" She sighed and sat down next to me. "Some months yes, some months no. Mostly I just cover my costs and pay the bills. I've been doing this for so long I don't really know any other way." I spent that night going through all the numbers more carefully. My college degree was in financial management, and even though I'd never used it professionally, I still remembered everything I'd learned. The restaurant had potential, but Ruth was missing some obvious opportunities. The next day, I asked if I could talk to her about some ideas. "Ruth, what if we made some small changes that could bring in more customers without spending much money?" She looked skeptical. "Coraline, I've been doing this for over 20 years. My customers like things the way they are. They don't want changes. But what if we could keep everything they love and just add some new things that would attract different people too?" "Like what?" I pulled out the notes I'd made. "First, we could add a couple new dishes to the menu. Nothing crazy, just some options that might appeal to younger customers. Second, we could start doing food delivery. And third, we could get a website so people can find us online." Ruth shook her head. Coraline, those changes sound expensive and complicated, and my regulars won't like it. The changes would actually be pretty cheap, I said. And we wouldn't get rid of anything your regulars already love. We'd just be giving them more options and making it easier for new people to discover this place. She thought about it for a few days. Finally, she came to me and said, "Okay, Coraline, we'll try your ideas for a few months and see what happens. But if my regular customers complain, we're going back to the old way immediately." I was so excited. This was my chance to actually use my education and maybe help both of us improve our situations. The first thing we did was add 2 new dishes to the menu. I suggested some Italian recipes I'd learned when my ex-husband and I went to Italy on our honeymoon. There was this amazing pasta dish with sun-dried tomatoes and a chicken recipe with herbs that I knew I could teach Ruth's cook to make. The new dishes were a hit right away. Even some of Ruth's regular customers tried them and liked them. Next, we set up the delivery service. Ruth's nephew, Noel, was 22 and looking for part-time work, so we hired him to do deliveries. We started simple. Just lunch and dinner orders within a 5-mile radius. Noel started getting orders almost immediately. Within 2 weeks, he was doing 10 to 15 deliveries a day. The website was trickier. I didn't know how to build one, and Ruth definitely didn't want to spend money on a professional web designer. But then I remembered that Mr. Parker, one of our regulars, worked for a computer company. I asked him about it one day when he came in for coffee. "Mr. Parker, do you know anything about building websites?" "Sure. I do that kind of thing all the time." "Why?" "Ruth and I want to get a website for the restaurant, but we don't have much money to spend on it." He smiled. "Tell you what, Coraline. Ruth's been serving me breakfast every morning for 8 years. I'll build you a basic website for the cost of materials. Just buy me lunch a couple times a week for the next few months." 3 months later, we had a simple but professional-looking website with our menu, hours, contact information, and photos of the restaurant. Mr. Parker even set it up so people could place delivery orders online. The changes were working better than I'd hoped. We were getting new customers every week, and our regular customers seemed to like the improvements. Ruth was actually smiling when she looked at the daily receipts instead of frowning. "Coraline, I have to admit I was wrong about all this," she said one evening as we were closing up. "These changes are really helping. I'm making more money than I have in years. I'm so glad, Ruth. You deserve to have a successful business after all the work you've put into this place." "You know what I've been thinking," she said. "If things keep going this well, maybe we could even do some renovations. Paint the dining room, get some new chairs, maybe update the sign out front." I could see the excitement in her eyes, and it made me feel amazing. For the first time since my divorce, I felt like I was actually good at something. I was helping Ruth build something better, and I was finally using my education in a meaningful way. 6 months after we started making changes, the restaurant was completely different. We used some of the extra money to do cosmetic repairs in the dining room. We painted the walls a warm yellow color, bought new tablecloths, and replaced the old wobbly chairs. Ruth even hired a local artist to make a new sign for the front of the building. The whole place looked fresh and welcoming. I started a blog about the restaurant to bring in even more customers. I'd write about different menu items and interview longtime customers. The blog brought in new people who found us online, and it really helped our business grow. I also came up with the Customer of the Month contest. Whoever ordered the most food or visited the most times in a month would get their picture on the wall and a free dinner for 2. Our regular customers loved the competition, and it encouraged people to come in more often. The blog and the contest brought in so many new customers that Ruth started talking about expanding. "Coraline, what would you think if I opened a second location? I've been looking at this space near the college campus. It's in an area with lots of students and young professionals. I think we could do really well there." "That sounds amazing, Ruth. Here's the thing though," she said. "I need someone I trust to run it. Someone who understands the business and knows how to manage people. I want you to be the director of the new location." I almost choked on my coffee. "Director? Ruth, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Coraline, you turned this place around. You brought us from barely surviving to actually thriving. If anyone can make the new restaurant successful, it's you. The salary she offered was more money than I'd ever made in my life. I said yes immediately. The new restaurant opened 3 months later near 3 different colleges. I set it up for younger customers with free Wi-Fi, study areas, quick takeaway options, and an expanded coffee menu. The delivery service was huge with college students. I also started weekly cooking classes that filled up every week. The second restaurant was successful right from the start. Within 6 months, we were turning a solid profit, and I was earning enough money to buy my own house instead of renting. I found this perfect 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood about 15 minutes from both restaurants. It had a big kitchen, a small yard, and even a garage. The mortgage payments would be tight, but with my new salary I could make it work. The day I signed the papers, I felt like I'd finally made it. 3 years ago, I was homeless and broke with no family support. Now I owned my own house and had a job I actually loved. All this time, I hadn't spoken to my parents or my sister at all. I'd see updates on Facebook sometimes. Mira had gotten married like my mom said she would, and they were still all living in my parents' house together. I felt bad sometimes that we weren't talking, but I also remembered how they treated me when I needed help. I was building a new life, and I was proud of what I'd accomplished. I had good friends at work, I was making decent money, and I finally felt stable again. Then one afternoon, while I was in my office at the original restaurant, I heard loud screaming coming from the dining room. I grabbed my name badge that said Director and rushed out to see what was happening. There was some kind of argument between customers, and I was about to step in when I froze. Sitting at one of the corner tables were my parents and Mira with her husband. They were the ones causing the scene, yelling at our waitress about something. When they saw me approaching with my director badge, they all went completely silent. Their mouths actually dropped open. "Coraline," my mom said. "You work here. You're the director?" Mira asked, staring at my badge. I quickly handled whatever complaint they had about their food and got them settled down. Then my mom grabbed my arm. "Honey, I'm so happy for you," she said with this fake smile. "A director position at a nice restaurant like this must pay really well." "I'm not discussing my income with you," I said coldly. "Is everything okay with your meal now?" "Coraline, we should talk," my dad started to say. "I'm working," I said. "Enjoy your lunch." I walked back to my office without looking back. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't concentrate on anything for the rest of the day. After 3 years of no contact, they just showed up out of nowhere. 3 days later, I was at home making dinner when I heard a knock at my front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was surprised when I opened it and saw my parents, Mira, and her husband standing on my porch. "How did you find out where I live?" I asked. "It's not hard to find people these days, Coraline," my mom said as they pushed past me into my house without being invited. They immediately started looking around at everything, examining my furniture and decorations like they were shopping. "We need to talk," my dad said. "We have a serious situation." They all sat down on my couch without being invited. Myra's husband looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. "We're having major housing problems," my mom started. "Mira and her husband still can't afford to move out because their jobs don't pay enough. We're all crammed into our old house, and it's not working anymore." "That's not my problem," I said. "But we figured out a solution," my dad said. "Your mom and I will move in here with you. Mira and her husband can stay in our old house. It's perfect." I actually laughed out loud. "Get out. Coraline, be reasonable," my mom said. "We're family. You want to know what family does," said. "They help each other when times are tough. They don't slam doors in each other's faces when someone needs a place to stay." "That was different," my dad said. "No, it wasn't," I shot back. "You wouldn't let me into your house when I was homeless and broke. Now you want to move into mine because I'm successful. You have exactly the same amount of time to leave that you gave me 3 years ago. 0. "You can't be serious," Mira said. "Get out of my house right now or I'm calling the police." My parents started yelling and my dad got really angry. "This isn't over, Coraline. We'll be seeing you again real soon. They finally left, but not before making a huge scene in my front yard. My neighbor across the street came over to make sure I was okay. After they drove away, I sat in my living room for a long time thinking about what just happened. 3 years of silence, and then they show up demanding to live in my house. The nerve of these people was unbelievable. 2 months went by, and I thought my family had finally gotten the message. I didn't hear from any of them, and I assumed they'd figured out some other solution to their housing problems. I was focused on work and enjoying my life in my new home. Then one Tuesday afternoon while I was at the restaurant, my neighbor across the street, Mrs. Vega, called me. We'd talked a few times since I moved in. "Coraline, I think you need to come home right away," she said. "Some older people just picked your lock and went inside. They didn't take anything out, but they brought a bunch of boxes in. I recorded the whole thing on my phone because I thought they were robbers." My heart sank. I knew exactly who it was. "Mrs. Vega, can you describe them to me?" An older man and woman, probably in their 60s. The man was carrying tools. "That's my father," I said quietly. "He used to be a locksmith." I told Ruth I had an emergency and drove home as fast as I could. When I walked into my house, I couldn't believe what I saw. My living room was completely filled with boxes and furniture that wasn't mine. My parents were in the kitchen eating food from my refrigerator like nothing had happened. "What the hell is all this?" said. My mom looked up from her sandwich. "Oh good, you're home. We were just getting settled in. We told you this conversation wasn't over," my dad said calmly. "We knew you'd be upset at first, but then you'd calm down and realize this makes sense for everyone. Are you both completely insane? I told you to stay away from my house." "Coraline, we'll help with the housework," my mom said. "I'll cook and clean, and your father will take care of your yard. We'll only use one bedroom, and we won't interfere with your life. And Mira and her husband will only visit on weekends," my dad added. "You'll barely notice we're here." I was so angry I could barely speak. "I don't need any of this. You have exactly 30 minutes to get all your stuff out of my house, or I'm calling the police." They both laughed like I was joking. "Coraline, you're not really going to call the police on your own parents," my mom said. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 right in front of them. "Yes, I need to report a break-in. 2 people entered my house illegally and are refusing to leave." Okay, we'll leave," my dad said quickly. "But this is ridiculous, Coraline. We're your family. You stopped being my family 3 years ago when you slammed the door in my face." They jumped out into the street and started making a huge scene. My dad began swearing at me using words I can't even repeat here. My mom started screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs. "Look at this, everyone!" My mom shouted so the whole neighborhood could hear. "My own daughter is throwing her parents out on the street. We raised her, and this is how she repays us. You're an ungrateful little brat, Coraline," my dad yelled. "After everything we did for you." Other neighbors started coming out of their houses to see what all the commotion was about. I was so embarrassed, but I wasn't going to back down. Then Mrs. Vega came over from across the street. "I have the whole thing recorded on my phone," she told my parents loudly. "I saw you pick the lock and break into her house illegally. If you don't leave right now, I'm sending this video to the police." My dad's face got really red, but he stopped swearing. My mom finally stopped screaming when she realized people were staring at them. They got back in their truck and drove away without saying another word. I thanked Mrs. Vega for having my back. She was more of a family to me than my actual relatives. Couple hours later, my phone started ringing. It was Mira calling, and she was screaming before I even said hello. "Coraline, what the hell did you do? Mom and Dad just showed up back here with all their stuff. I don't want them living here. They already gave me this house." "That sounds like something you need to work out with them," I said. "You have plenty of room. Why can't they just stay with you?" "Because I said no. Same reason you all said no when I needed help. That was completely different, and you know it." "How was it different, Mira?" "Because Because you made a stupid decision and ruined your own life. And you all made a stupid decision giving away your house before you had somewhere else to go. Not my problem. Coraline, please. I'm begging you. Take them back. No. And don't call me again. I hung up and blocked all their phone numbers. I was done with this drama. A month later, I found out through Facebook that my parents had moved in with my aunt temporarily, and that they were suing Mira to try to get their old house back. Mira was fighting them in court, and the whole thing was a mess. I didn't care who won. All I cared about was that they were finally leaving me alone. Ruth and I kept expanding the business, and my salary kept going up. I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of, and I loved my job. I had good friends at work, and Mrs. Vega had become like a mother to me. My relationship with Ruth was better than ever, and she was talking about maybe opening a third location next year. She said she couldn't imagine running any of it without me. You saved my business, Coraline, she told me one day. But more than that, you became like a daughter to me. That meant more to me than anything my real family had ever said. I'd built a life I was proud of, with people who actually cared about me. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over when my husband cheated and my family abandoned me. But losing all of that forced me to find out who I really was and what I was capable of. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. Now I had my own home, a career I loved, and real friends who supported me. I didn't need my biological family's approval or help. I created my own family, with people who truly deserved to be in my life.